subjects that we can talk about in this chapter. Talk about adultery, anger, beauty, all these different things of responsibility, dishonesty, immorality. There's all sorts of ways that a person can go through this and this talk about in this passage. We're just going to go verse by verse. We're going to look at it. I like this passage because, to me, the primary thing that's going on here is character. How do we do when life has dealt us a bad hand? When things aren't going well? Now, Joseph had been taken down to Egypt. He was taken as a slave. He was traded by his brothers. His brothers were jealous of him. And his brothers had him out in the field because Jacob asked him to go fetch the brothers to come back in. And Jacob went out, and the brothers were, they didn't like him because he was the favored one. And then I think the tipping point was when he shared about his dreams that everyone was going to bow down to him. And that just really ticked him off. And some of the brothers says, let's kill Joseph. And some of the other brothers said, no, let's don't kill him. Let's sell him. And Jacob gave Joseph this coat, this nice coat, a special coat. He says, we'll kill an animal and put some blood on that coat and take it back to our father and show him that, and tell him that a wild animal killed him. And we're going to sell him to the traders that go to Egypt. And so they put him in a hole until the traders came by. And they took his coat, they killed an animal, put blood on it, they sold Joseph, and they brought the coat back to Jacob, the father. And Jacob was distraught, and he was depressed. It hurt him so, and they could see that their father was hurt. And they didn't know, they weren't maybe expecting that. But this is where the story picks up. Now Joseph had been taken down to Egypt. He was sold to the Amalekites. And Potiphar, an Egyptian who was one of Pharaoh's officials, the captain of the guard, he was like one of the chief police. He was like kind of like one of the chief police guys. But he was actually the captain of the guard, was the executioner. He was kind of a rough dude. You got to have you deal with rough people a lot. He bought him. He looked like a good guy, like he could be a good slave. You could tell he wasn't a roughed up individual. He was a refined individual. So he bought him from the Ishmaelites. What do you think Joseph is feeling and thinking at this point in his life? He was doted in his father's household, and now he is at the bottom of the totem pole, a slave. What's he thinking? What's he feeling? All sorts of thoughts go through our mind when events change our lives. How do you respond when you encounter negative, life-changing events? Negative, life-changing events. It wasn't his choice. How do you respond when someone dies? How do you respond when you get fired from a job? How do you respond when divorce happens? How about abuse? Negative, life-changing events came into Joseph's life. How do you respond to that? What do you do with that? How do you handle that? And one of the questions that I have, what choices did Joseph have during this time in his life? What choices did Joseph have? Let's think about that. What choice did he have? What choices?
He had a choice to respond to the circumstances.
And what would the choice be?
His attitude.
Be bitter or trust God that he had a
Okay,
plan.
he has a choice. He can become bitter. If you notice, not once in this whole passage did he say, "Why, God?" Not once. Not once did he doubt God. Joseph is like a type of Christ. Joseph was the favored son. Jesus was the Son of God. Jesus was in heaven. Joseph was the favored one in his house. Jesus came as a servant and as a humble servant to this earth. Joseph was made a servant also. God sent His Son. Joseph could believe that he was sent to Egypt, or this is just a horrible mistake. How do you deal with negative, life-changing events? It's like, well, where's God? Or I have to do something about this. God can't be in this. Something horrible happened. And we can really get weird. Joseph had a choice to trust God, that He's right there in the middle of it. I just think it's amazing. Reminds me of Viktor Frankl, who said that the last of the human freedoms. He was a man that was imprisoned in Nazi concentration camps. Horrible, horrible situations. And he says there were always several men in all these camps, whatever scrap of food they were given, they would give it away to other men. And they would always be smiling. And he says it's proof positive that the last of the human freedoms is the one that can never be taken away from you, to choose one's own way, to choose one's own attitude. We're always free to choose our attitude. We're always free to choose to trust God. The Lord was with Joseph so that he prospered. Now everyone here, how many here has had negative things happen to them? That you would consider maybe negative, life-changing things happen to you. If you haven't had any of that yet, just wait. It will happen. Negative things are going to come into your life. Bad things are going to come into your life. How you respond to them is going to show who you are. It doesn't show who God is. It doesn't show who the devil is. It shows who you are. The Lord was with Joseph. I just want to let everyone know that the Lord is with you. Now, since the Lord was with Joseph and the Lord is with me, does it seem like you're prospering? How come he prospered and maybe you don't feel like you're prospering? I'll give you a hint that's maybe not quite in the passage. It says the Lord was with Joseph. Joseph was with the Lord. That's the key. Joseph followed God. Joseph came underneath God. Nothing can get through nothing can come to you unless God has allowed it to come to you. Isn't that right? Nothing!
That's right.
Still reminds me of the time, and I've told the story before, but to me it's a great story. Here I am, I'm traveling on the road, playing trumpet. Every time I play, people clap for me. It's a tough job, you know. But one occasion, I only saw a bed 7 out of 14 days. We traveled overnight. How do you like sleeping on the bench seat? Do that for 7 nights out of 14. Remember the one guy, he was sleeping in the back, and then it was cold out, and he told me he reached over, he set his Mountain Dew down on the floor, and it was next to the heater. And then he put it up to his lips in the morning. He says, that was terrible. never forgot that. And he says, that mouth when you wake up, if the last thing that you drank that evening before you went to sleep was Mountain Dew, your mouth in the morning is really bad. He called it mung mouth. I'll never forget it. And you know what? Just the thought of it, I said, that's probably the word for it, mung mouth. I don't know what that is, but that's probably what it was. And here we are. I don't know about you. When you don't sleep well, how do you feel?
Grumpy.
Oh, I was all cranky. Here we are.
Not me.
Hello? Invite them to church. That's
It's in my hand.
Here I am. We went to India.
Sorry, it was me. Okay.
Was that your alarm to wake up or something?
No, I hit something and went to Facebook. FaceTime.
Okay. All right. Okay, here we are in Indiana. We couldn't get out our equipment because it was a place where the union guys had to come in, put all the equipment and set it all up, and they didn't know how to do it. So, but anyway, that's just the way it was. So I decided to get out my trumpet and practice a little bit, just warm up and all that kind of stuff. And Tony Harris, a big old Texan, he's about 6'3" or whatever he was. Hey, Ron, what do you get when you squeeze a lemon, you know? What do you get when you squeeze a lemon? I'm really not into the joke mood, Tony. I don't know, you get lemon juice? He says, no, whatever's inside the lemon comes out. It could be worms. And then he walks away. It was like a brick that hit me. I was being squeezed, and what was coming out of me wasn't too good. And I thought the agent was insane. He had a map of the United States. This is what we talked about. The agent who booked us had a map of the United States. They must have blindfolded him and given him a bunch of darts and say, Monday they'll be here, Tuesday they'll be here, and Wednesday they'll be here. We were driving all over the place. And that's why, I mean, how else do you, and we figured that's what happened. We were upset at the owner of the organization that we were with, because why would anybody have us drive like that? And then it came to my mind, is it possible that I'm fighting God? God has allowed this. So I said, God, I'm not going to fight you anymore. Do what you got to do in my life. Would you please do what I need to do in my life? Because then Brother James comes back, considered it pure joy when you encounter trials of many kinds, because the trying of your faith will produce patience. And let patience or perseverance have its perfect work, then you'll be complete, lacking in nothing. And I said, Lord, I'm not going to fight you anymore. I give in. I submit to you. But whatever you have to do, would you do it quickly? That's what I'm praying. And you know, it's a lot quicker if you yield and cooperate. The problems that you're having, God has allowed it to come into your life, friend. Yeah, there's other people that made decisions. His brothers, he could be ticked off at his brothers. He could be ticked off at whoever. God has allowed the situation that you're in that you hate right now. God has allowed it, friend. Because He loves you. Because He wants to produce in you something that's greater than your eye is on at this point. He wants to produce His character in you. This is character time. Because it can't be because He's in the career path. You wouldn't, and nobody would choose this for their career path. It's because He's got a calling on him. That's why. The Lord was with Joseph, so he prospered. He lived in the house of the Egyptian master. God will prosper you even if you're a slave. No matter where you're at right now in your life, God will prosper you if you walk with Him and submit to Him and work with Him. God will prosper you. When we open our life and heart to God, God will be with us no matter the circumstance. He will bless and cause good things to happen even in the worst of the moments. For we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, not whine at Him. Who love Him and are called according to His purposes. Reflect on the bad times when no one else was there but God. Isn't this Joseph's situation? No one else was there. Could it be that God is trying to get you to a place where you won't depend on anybody, but your eyes have to be on Him? He's drawing you to Him, not to depend on this person or that thing or your job or your 401k. He wants you to depend on Him. How do you feel when you can only depend on God? If you know Him, it's a great thing. If you don't, you're scared spitless. How did He prosper you during this? What good came out of the bad times? Can good come out of bad times? Absolutely. If we let God in there, good will come out of it. If we don't let God in there, we're fighting God. It will always be confused. We think it's a mistake. Bad things happen. But God is bigger. And when his master saw that the Lord was with him, his master saw the Lord was with him. This is an Egyptian man. God's got to be with this guy. He's different. You ever been around people that are different? Everybody ever said to you, you're different. And it's the God in you. The Lord was with him, and that the Lord gave him success in everything he did. Joseph found favor in his eyes and became his attendant. He became Potiphar's personal attendant. He says, I want you next to me. I want you to travel with me. Potiphar put him in charge of his household, and he entrusted to his care everything. Say everything.
Everything.
Oh my goodness. Everything he owned. Everything. From the time he put him in charge of his household and all that he owned, the Lord blessed the household of the Egyptian because of Joseph. The blessing of the Lord was on everything Potiphar had, both in the house and in the field. When you enter in, when when someone that's a Christ follower is a part of an organization that's really following God, that organization is going to start succeeding in a way it never happened before. Have you ever been a part of somebody's life? Have you ever been a part of somebody's life that's following God, and because of that, the blessings start to fall on you now? The blessing starts to... Have you ever prospered through an ongoing and deepening connection with someone who's following God? It was a kind of a strange thing. Here I am, after Benita and I got married. We weren't planning. It was about a year and a half, 2 years or so. All of a sudden, God began talking to us and said, "It's time to start a family." It's not our idea. Benita at that point was the main breadwinner. All I did was know how to play trumpet, so I'm a trumpet player. What am I supposed to do? Well, I worked for this, it's called Town and Country Theater, and I did some music stuff there, but I mean, I didn't make that much money. She was the one who made money. We were on her health insurance and everything. God's saying, it's time to start a family. Well, we start a family. She's going to stay home with the child. I got to find a job, a different kind of job. I know what's going to happen. I have to. I had a search of about 8 months. This is after Benita's pregnant with John. John's due in January. Now I don't have a job yet, and it's December. I looked all sorts of places and went to different employment agencies, this and that and the other thing. It was about an 8-month search. It was December. It was about 2 weeks before Christmas. You know, when you get to the end, I've been praying all along, but I got a little lower. I get down on my knees. God, I don't know what to do. But, I'm trusting. You follow God and you lay your life on the line. You say, well, once I get a job, then we'll go the route of trying to get a child, right? No. We're just following God. Trusting Him. Looked in the paper, there was this obscure job. It was just a teeny little thing, and it said it was in Cleveland. And I lived probably 35 miles from Cleveland. 35, 40 miles. I went there, talked to them. They hired me on the spot. I said, I want this and I want this, and they gave it to me. They gave me health insurance, and they gave me the kind of money that I was looking for. That was it. I said, can I start January, at the beginning of January? I think it was 2. They said, so I had 2 weeks off. I could enjoy my family. Then I started. And then when I was there, I remember in the back room, God says, because you're here, Ron, this place is going to prosper. I never thought about it. I said, oh, okay. Wow. It was about 3 years later. The president of the company said, you are the best manager I've ever had that's ever worked here in my 20 years of work in this business. And the place prospered. They got millions of dollars. At that point, God was calling me to go to the seminary. I didn't. He says, he just threw me his keys. He says, just take my truck. Just go and check it out. And this one time, we were in the back room again, and he was making fun. He made fun of me. He made fun of me in some certain way, and after he did that, his leg, something, he picked his leg up, and it was like he had a Charlie horse or something went wrong with his leg, and he was a runner. He did triathlons, and something went wrong with his leg, and then he turned to me and he says, "Ron, I'm sorry, forgive me." Because he was kind of making fun of me, and I said, "Why are you saying that?" He says, because he never talked about God, but he says, "I should never touch God's anointing." I said, wow. He had a fear of God. He saw God in me. Sort of like Potiphar. He saw God in me. I didn't talk to him much about it. I just did my job and lived it as well as I knew how to. I wasn't perfect. But that place prospered. And because of that, I prospered. Have you ever prospered through an ongoing deepening connection with somebody else? That's what the church is about. That's what the church is supposed to be about. That's what God's people are supposed to be about. When you invite people in, they should catch the spirit that's in here. It's a prospering spirit. Where God is, there's life. And that's the church. You invite people into your life. They should become better persons because of you. Because you're following God. That's what will happen. And that's what we are. We're supposed to go into the worldly places just like Joseph went. And wherever we step our foot, people are going to sense the blessing of God. And they'll say it's because of your God. And it will draw them in. That's the idea behind it. So Potiphar left everything he had in Joseph's care. Now listen to this. In Joseph's charge, he did not concern himself with anything except the food he ate. I'm not concerned about nothing. Man, this guy had no worries. I'm leaving it. All I'm concerned about is my plate. The food on my plate. I just want to, what's for supper, honey? What's for lunch? Oh, good, we're going out. Okay, we're going to go out to the corner, whatever, in Egypt. Whatever they have there. I mean, I don't know. They had leeks and onions, I know that. So, all he cared about was what he ate. He woke up and he said, "Oh, what's for breakfast?" After he's done puttering around a little bit, "Oh, what's for lunch?" Wow. Trust. This bond happened. Have you ever been around people like that? It's like, wow. When they came in, it was a breath of fresh air. It's almost a scary thing. Over time, tremendous trust can take place in positive God-centered relationships. And sometimes it can suck us in. It can suck us into a strange place. And sometimes we can even trust beyond what we should be trusting. We need to follow God in the trust department. Potiphar really trusted the God in Joseph, whether he realized this or not. What made Joseph great was God. Have you ever gotten to a place where you're succeeding and then your head swells? If you're succeeding and your head swells, you're going down the wrong way. When people start trusting this deeply, when people start trusting me this deeply, I become fearful. I normally pray more. I've had people trust me implicitly because of the God in me, in a way that is almost scary.